your brain is not fixed. That's not just a motivational phrase. It's a scientific fact grounded in the concept of neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity refers to the brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. This means that how you think, how you behave, and even how you feel are not hardwired traits, but patterns that can be altered and upgraded through conscious effort and repetition. This idea alone, when fully understood and applied, has the power to transform every aspect of your life within 6 months. Let's break this down practically. Every single thought you have, every habit you repeat, every behavior you engage in, it's all reinforced by a network of neurons in your brain. These networks become stronger the more they're activated. When you do something once, your brain pays attention. When you do it again and again, your brain says, "This must be important," and it lays down thicker myelin around those neural circuits, making that thought or behavior easier and faster to repeat. This is how habits form. It's how your identity forms. You are, neurologically speaking, the sum of your most repeated thoughts and actions. The reason most people stay stuck in the same life year after year isn't because they lack potential or intelligence. It's because they don't understand this fundamental principle. They live in reaction mode. They repeat the same behaviors, engage in the same thought patterns, respond to the same emotions the same way, and then wonder why nothing changes. But once you recognize that your current identity is just a result of practiced wiring, you can begin to take control and actively build new circuits that support the life you want to live. Let's say you currently identify as someone who procrastinates. That's not a fixed trait, it's a pattern. Every time you avoid something, you're reinforcing the avoidance neural network. But if you start doing the opposite, taking action in spite of discomfort, you're building a new identity. At first, it will feel unnatural. Your brain will resist because it's efficient and wants to follow well-worn paths. But if you push through, even just for 5 minutes a day, you start creating new neural circuits. In time, action becomes more automatic. Your identity starts to shift. You're no longer someone who procrastinates. You're becoming someone who takes initiative. Rich people, high performers, elite athletes, world-class creatives, they all understand this whether consciously or intuitively. They don't just rely on motivation or talent. They use repetition and structure to train their brains for excellence. They deliberately shape their cognitive wiring to focus, to resist distraction, to embrace challenge. And over time, these mental habits translate into external success. Now, here's where it gets even more powerful. Your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. When you visualize a behavior, such as confidently speaking, working out, or completing a project, your brain activates many of the same neural pathways as if you were doing it physically. This is why mental rehearsal is so effective. Olympic athletes visualize their races before they run. CEOs visualize their meetings. You can visualize your new identity every day, and your brain will begin to lay the groundwork for that change. Consistency is the key. You can't do this once and expect a life change. Neuroplasticity requires repeated, focused effort. The good news is the brain loves efficiency. Once you start creating a new habit and sticking to it, the brain starts making it easier. What was once hard becomes effortless. This is why, after just a few months of deliberate training, people begin to feel like a new person. It's not just psychology, it's physiology. Let's say you commit to waking up early, reading daily, exercising consistently, and working on your side business. At first, your brain will fight you. It will crave the old comforts, sleeping in, scrolling, skipping workouts. But if you keep showing up day after day, something amazing happens. You start to crave progress. You start to identify as a disciplined person. Your default state changes. Your brain rewires for the life you're aiming for, not the one you're trying to escape. It's worth noting that this change isn't always comfortable. Rewiring your brain often involves pruning old circuits, meaning those old habits and emotional responses begin to fade. You might feel a sense of loss or discomfort at first. That's a good sign. It means you're evolving. Growth never feels safe. But on the other side of that discomfort is freedom, real freedom. The kind where you wake up energized, knowing you're aligned with who you want to be, not who you've been. In 6 months, with consistent, deliberate effort, you can fundamentally change your brain's wiring. You can become the kind of person who focuses deeply, learns rapidly, acts courageously, and perseveres relentlessly. All it takes is the understanding that you are not stuck. You are simply practiced. And you can start practicing a new version of yourself today. Dopamine is often misunderstood as just the chemical of pleasure, but in reality, it plays a much more central role in shaping our lives. It's not pleasure itself. It's the neurochemical of ours anticipation and motivation. It's what drives us to act, pursue goals, and feel satisfaction from progress. Understanding how dopamine works is one of the most powerful tools you can use to transform your life, and it's something the most successful people in the world have already mastered, whether they realize it scientifically or not. Here's how it works. When you anticipate a reward, your brain releases dopamine. This motivates you to move toward the goal. The problem in modern life is that dopamine is being hijacked by cheap sources, endless scrolling, junk food, quick entertainment, even constant multitasking. These things provide rapid, artificial spikes of dopamine that give you a temporary hit of pleasure, but they come with a heavy cost. Over time, your brain becomes desensitized. Your natural baseline drops. You stop finding motivation in long-term goals, deep focus, or sustained effort. You feel flat, distracted, and unmotivated, and you don't even know why. This is not a character flaw, it's neurochemistry. But the good news is you can change it. You can recondition your brain to find satisfaction in discipline, focus, and progress. This is what the top 1% do. They train their brain to associate dopamine not with results, but with the effort toward results. They don't just celebrate the win, they celebrate the work. And once your brain begins to associate pleasure with the process itself, success becomes a byproduct of your lifestyle. Imagine this: you sit down to work, and instead of needing music, caffeine, or external pressure to start, you actually crave the act of deep focus. You look forward to the challenge. That's the switch. That's when you've rewired your dopamine system to serve you, not sabotage you. This doesn't happen by accident. It takes intention, structure, and consistency. One of the first steps to regaining control of your dopamine system is to remove or reduce the cheap spikes. That means cutting back on mindless social media use, reducing ultra-processed food, and limiting impulsive entertainment. Not because these things are inherently evil, but because they train your brain to expect frequent, low-effort rewards. When you remove them, you create a kind of neurochemical vacuum. Your brain doesn't like the silence at first, but then something amazing happens. It starts to upregulate its sensitivity to natural sources of dopamine. This is when motivation begins to return. Next, you introduce structured, intentional sources of effort. Choose a goal that matters. Break it into daily tasks. Then, and this is key, focus your attention on the act of doing the task, not just finishing it. Let's say you want to build a business, get in shape, or master a skill. When you show up to practice, train your mind to recognize that the act of showing up, of pushing through resistance, is itself the reward. You repeat this mindset daily, and your brain starts rewiring. Dopamine becomes linked to effort. And now, instead of needing motivation to act, action itself becomes your motivation. This is what elite performers do. They don't rely on short bursts of inspiration. They create routines that trigger dopamine in predictable, sustainable ways. They understand the rhythm of their biology. For instance, they might train hard in the morning, work on cognitively demanding tasks when their brain is primed for focus, and rest deeply when it's time to recover. They don't confuse stimulation with productivity. They know the value of our cyclical effort. Push hard, then recover intentionally. Another advanced strategy is dopamine fasting. This doesn't mean removing all joy from life. It means intentionally abstaining from high dopamine behaviors for a period to reset your baseline. Even just one day of reduced stimulation, no phone, no sugar, no streaming, can begin to recalibrate your brain's reward circuitry. After a few days, things that used to seem boring, reading, walking, working, begin to feel satisfying again. This is not just psychological, it's a real shift in brain chemistry. Now imagine what happens when you string together days, then weeks, then months of this kind of discipline. Your entire internal world changes. You start to feel energized by structure. You begin to crave the grind, the focus, the challenge. You don't need external validation to feel good. You generate your own momentum. And over time, this compounds into real-world results: better health, more creativity, financial growth, emotional resilience. Here's the bottom line. Your dopamine system is like a GPS for your behavior. If you let it be programmed by the world, you'll chase distractions forever. But if you reprogram it yourself by linking dopamine to discipline, to process, to effort, you become unstoppable. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. And the beauty of it is, once the system is in place, motivation becomes automatic. The climb becomes the reward. This is not a fantasy. This is biology. And if you stay consistent for even 6 months, the change you feel mentally, emotionally, physically will be undeniable. You'll no longer be chasing success. You'll be living in alignment with it every single day. Most people associate freedom with doing whatever they want, whenever they want. But in reality, that version of freedom often leads to chaos, inconsistency, and a lack of real achievement. The truth is, real freedom, the kind that leads to personal, financial, and emotional power, comes from structure. Daily routines, deliberate scheduling, and intentional time management are the hidden engines behind the most successful and fulfilled individuals in the world. If you want to transform your life in 6 months, this is one of the most powerful levers you can pull. Structure is not confinement, it's alignment. It's about organizing your time, energy, and focus around what actually matters. Without structure, your brain is left to operate in reactive mode. It chases distractions, shifts aimlessly from task to task, and responds to the environment instead of shaping it. But with structure, you reclaim control. You switch from a scattered, overstimulated mind to a focused, disciplined one. And that shift alone can change your trajectory faster than almost anything else. Let's start with the morning. The most successful people do not wake up and check their phones first thing. Why? Because your brain is in a highly programmable state upon waking. The first inputs of your day set the tone for your focus, energy, and mood. If you flood your brain with dopamine from social media or news, you set yourself up for a day of low impulse control and reactive thinking. Instead, they follow a morning routine, simple but consistent, that primes them for high performance. It might include hydration, movement, exposure to natural light, journaling, or focused reading. These habits aren't just feel good routines. They are mechanisms for activating your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, focus, and decision-making. Once the day is in motion, high performers move into structured work blocks. These are uninterrupted periods of time, usually 60 to 90 minutes, dedicated to one specific task or project. During these blocks, distractions are eliminated. Notifications are off. The phone is out of reach. This isn't just about working hard. It's about working smart. Studies consistently show that focused work in defined intervals yields far higher output than scattered multitasking across the entire day. In fact, most people could double their productivity simply by applying this principle alone. By giving your brain full permission to focus, you enter a mental state called deep work, where creativity and problem-solving rise dramatically. Structure also includes intentional breaks. The brain isn't designed for 8 hours of nonstop concentration. High performers know how to work intensely, but also how to rest effectively. This includes strategic pauses between work sessions, time for movement, quality nutrition, and proper sleep. These aren't luxuries, they are performance tools. Sleep, for example, consolidates memory, enhances decision-making, and restores emotional regulation. Without it, your structured day becomes just a list of stress-inducing tasks. With it, your day becomes a rhythm of effort and recovery. Midday routines also matter. Decision fatigue is real. The more choices you make throughout the day, the harder it becomes to make high-quality decisions later. This is why successful people often automate small decisions, what to wear, what to eat, when to train, so they can save mental energy for what really counts. They may eat the same meals, follow a time-blocked calendar, or use checklists for recurring tasks. This isn't boring, it's strategic. Every ounce of decision energy saved in trivial matters is redirected toward high-leverage thinking and action. Evening routines are another pillar of effective structure. Rather than scrolling into the night or numbing out with entertainment, successful individuals use their evenings for reflection and wind down. This might include reviewing the day, planning tomorrow, stretching, reading, or disconnecting from screens to signal to the brain that rest is coming. This pattern trains the body and mind to operate on a cycle: effort in the day, recovery at night. over time. This builds resilience, consistency, and clarity. The key is not to copy someone else's routine exactly, but to build a structure that supports your unique goals, biology, and lifestyle. What matters is not the specifics, but the Aziz's consistency. When you do the same things at the same times each day, you reduce cognitive friction. You no longer waste energy deciding when to work, when to rest, or how to start. The habit takes over. Your environment cues the behavior, and your brain settles into flow more easily. This is what makes high performance sustainable. It's not about burning out. It's about designing a system that supports you. Over the course of 6 months, structure will change your identity. The person who shows up consistently every morning, who puts in deep work, who guards their time like it's gold, this is not just someone who gets more done. This is someone who is building trust with themselves. And that self-trust becomes confidence. Confidence becomes momentum, and momentum is what creates exponential transformation. The mistake people make is believing that freedom is found in the absence of structure. But anyone who's tried living without it knows the truth. Without structure, your time gets taken by everyone and everything else. But when you apply structure, you reclaim your time, your energy, your direction. You begin to live with purpose, not just motion. You start moving from potential to reality. And here's the most powerful part. Once this becomes your new normal, you won't want to go back. You'll look at the old version of you, scattered and distracted, and wonder how you ever lived like that. Because when structure becomes part of who you are, you don't just change what you do, you change who you become. The ability to focus is rapidly becoming one of the most valuable skills in the modern world. We live in an era of distraction where attention is constantly being hijacked by devices, notifications, and digital noise. In this environment, the ability to direct your attention with precision is a kind of superpower. It is what allows you to learn faster, work more efficiently, build deeper relationships, and make better decisions. Focus is not just a mental preference. It's a neurological process that can be strengthened and trained over time, just like a muscle. And if you can learn to train your brain to focus deeply, you will immediately set yourself apart from the majority of people who are operating in a state of fragmented attention. At the biological level, focus is governed by several key brain systems, including the prefrontal cortex, which handles decision-making and impulse control, and the anterior cingulate cortex, which helps you detect distractions and redirect attention. When these systems are strong and well regulated, you can hold your attention on a task for extended periods without drifting. But if these systems are weak, due to poor sleep, overstimulation, lack of discipline, or constant multitasking, your brain will default to shallow thinking and rapid task switching, which reduces your efficiency and cognitive performance. The process of building focus begins with managing your external environment. The brain is extremely responsive to cues. If your workspace is full of distractions, open tabs, social media notifications, unnecessary noise, it becomes almost impossible to achieve deep concentration. Successful people intentionally design their environments for focus. They remove clutter, silence devices, and create time blocks where the only goal is to concentrate fully on one task. This eliminates the need for constant willpower because the environment itself supports the behavior. In a distraction-free space, the brain has fewer reasons to shift attention and more capacity to enter states of flow, where focus becomes effortless and productivity increases dramatically. But focus is not just about what you subtract. It's also about what you train. One of the most powerful practices for improving attention is single tasking. This means doing one thing at a time with full presence until completion or until a set time has passed. This goes directly against the common habit of multitasking, which splits your cognitive resources and reduces the quality of your output. Neuroscience has shown that multitasking is actually task switching. Your brain rapidly jumps between tasks, incurring a cognitive penalty each time. This leads to mental fatigue, more mistakes, and slower progress. In contrast, single tasking trains your brain to stay engaged, to resist distraction, and to complete things with greater depth and quality. Another effective method to sharpen focus is through mindfulness training. This doesn't necessarily mean long meditation sessions, although those can be useful. It simply means learning to observe when your mind wanders and gently bringing it back. Whether you're focusing on your breath, a single idea, or the present moment. This practice strengthens the neural circuits involved in attention control. Just 10 minutes a day of mindfulness practice has been shown to improve attention span, reduce anxiety, and increase emotional regulation, all of which enhance your ability to focus under pressure. Physical health also plays a critical role in cognitive focus. Sleep, for example, is essential for restoring attention systems in the brain. Without adequate sleep, the prefrontal cortex becomes sluggish and distractions become more tempting. Similarly, nutrition affects neurotransmitter balance. A diet high in sugar and processed foods can spike and crash blood sugar, leading to mental fog and inconsistent focus. Exercise, particularly cardiovascular training, increases blood flow to the brain and stimulates the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, which supports cognitive function and learning. Hydration, sunlight, and even posture all have subtle but important effects on how well you can concentrate throughout the day. In addition to environment, training, and health, intention is key. When you begin any task with a clear intention, knowing exactly what you're trying to achieve and why, it becomes easier for the brain to stay aligned with the goal. Clarity fuels focus. Ambiguity invites distraction. High performers don't just work hard. They define what success looks like for each session, whether it's writing 500 words, finishing a workout, or solving a specific problem. They know what they're trying to do, and they measure progress in real time. This sense of direction keeps the brain anchored and prevents drift. One of the most transformative habits you can build in the next 6 months is to create a daily focus ritual, a specific time each day, even just 60 to 90 minutes, where you engage in deep work with zero distractions. During this time, you eliminate phone access, block digital interruptions, and give your full attention to something meaningful. Over time, this ritual not only improves your ability to focus, but it also reshapes your identity. You become someone who can create, solve, and think clearly. You begin to trust your mind because you've trained it. And here's the payoff. When your brain learns to focus deeply, everything else becomes easier. Learning accelerates. Projects move faster. Confidence grows. You begin to feel a sense of control over your life because you can direct your energy where it matters. While others are caught in the storm of distraction, you're moving forward with purpose and clarity. You're not reacting, you're building. And that ability to build one focused session at a time is how real transformation happens. Financial success is often seen as something mysterious or unattainable, but when you break it down through the lens of behavioral neuroscience and habit design, it becomes clear that wealth building is primarily a game of repeated, focused behaviors. The individuals who consistently grow their financial resources over time don't just earn more or get lucky. They apply systems, routines, and mindsets that compound daily into long-term wealth. Understanding how to build those systems is a critical component of life transformation, and the principles are not exclusive to the wealthy. Anyone can adopt them. What separates the wealthy from the average is not necessarily intelligence, opportunity, or background. It's consistency, discipline, and clarity around money behavior. To start with, financial transformation begins in the mind. Before money ever shows up in your bank account, it shows up in your belief system. People who are stuck financially often carry unexamined stories about money, ideas like money is scarce, rich people are greedy, or I'll never be good with finances. These beliefs shape your actions at a subconscious level. If you see money as stressful or confusing, you'll avoid dealing with it. If you see money as power, opportunity, and responsibility, you'll begin to take control of it. Wealthy individuals tend to operate with a mindset of abundance, not scarcity. This doesn't mean they recklessly spend. It means they believe that money is a tool that can be managed, grown, and used to create more freedom. Once the mindset shifts, behavior has to follow. One of the first things financially successful people do is track everything. They are not passive about their income and expenses. They know where every dollar goes. They often set up simple, automated systems for budgeting, saving, and investing. This isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. When you track your money, you begin to see patterns. You start to understand your emotional spending triggers, your fixed versus variable costs, and where you can cut or reallocate to invest in your future. Clarity creates confidence, and confidence leads to action. Another key financial habit is S, paying yourself first. Before bills, before discretionary spending, before anything else, wealthy people prioritize building their own financial cushion. Whether it's 10%, 20%, or more of their income, they automatically move money into savings and investments. This builds the discipline of deferred gratification, which is one of the strongest psychological predictors of financial success, the ability to delay reward, to say no to short-term pleasure in favor of long-term gain, literally reshapes how your brain processes decision-making. You stop chasing impulses and start building momentum. Wealthy individuals also understand F, the power of compounding, not just in money, but in behavior. Investing small amounts regularly over time produces far greater returns than sporadic, large efforts. This applies to saving, learning, skill development, and business. If you contribute consistently to your investment account, develop a marketable skill 1% each day, or build a side income stream hour by hour, the compounding effect over 6 months to a year is exponential. Many people underestimate how much they can change in a short period by applying small actions daily. But when these actions are financial in nature, tracking expenses, increasing earnings, automating investments, the transformation is tangible. Income generation is also a key lever. You can't cut your way to wealth. Eventually, you have to expand your capacity to earn. Wealthy people don't just rely on one income stream, they develop multiple. This could include a main job or business, a freelance side hustle, investments, royalties, or digital products. The point is not to hustle endlessly, but to diversify income intelligently. By stacking small, reliable income streams, they build a financial foundation that's resilient to change. They take calculated risks, learn from failure, and keep building. The mindset here is not get rich quick. It's build wealth consistently. And they invest in themselves. One of the highest returns anyone can get is not from the stock market or real estate. It's from improving their own knowledge, skills, and network. Wealthy individuals read. They study finance, psychology, business, and leadership. They attend events, engage with mentors, and stay curious. This isn't just about learning facts. It's about reprogramming how they think and what they believe is possible. Every book read, every course taken, every mentor conversation compounds into a sharper decision maker and more confident investor. Finally, wealthy people create systems to remove emotion from money decisions. They automate savings. They set rules for spending. They create decision protocols for investments. This is not because they don't trust themselves, but because they understand human nature. When decisions are left to emotion, especially in high-stress moments, we often default to short-term thinking. By building structure around money, automated contributions, set budgets, spending limits, they protect themselves from self-sabotage. This frees their mental energy for bigger, strategic decisions. In 6 months, these financial habits can fundamentally alter your life trajectory. Imagine going from reactive to proactive with money. Imagine waking up knowing your bills are covered, your future is being funded, and your income is growing. That confidence spills into every area of your life. It's not about being rich for the sake of status. It's about having control, security, and options. That's real wealth. And it's not out of reach. It starts with small, consistent actions that anyone can take, especially you. One of the most overlooked aspects of life transformation is the power of environment. People tend to think that change is all about willpower or discipline, but neuroscience clearly shows that the environment you live, work, and socialize in has a profound impact on your thoughts, behaviors, and identity. In fact, many of the habits you struggle with are not failures of motivation. They are simply the natural result of being in a system that promotes distraction, stagnation, and complacency. High performers understand this. They don't rely solely on internal motivation. They design their surroundings in ways that make success the default and not the exception. If you want to truly transform your life in 6 months, you must learn to intentionally curate the spaces, people, and inputs around you. Your physical environment affects your brain in subtle but powerful ways. Cluttered spaces can increase cortisol, the stress hormone, and make it harder for your brain to focus. Dim lighting can reduce alertness and lower your energy. Even temperature, noise levels, and the positioning of your workspace can influence productivity and emotional state. Wealthy and high-performing individuals are deeply intentional about their physical environments. They craft workspaces that promote clarity and focus, Minimalistic setups with good lighting, ergonomic furniture, and designated zones for specific types of work. These changes may seem small, but they reduce friction and mental fatigue, creating a setting where your brain can function optimally. But environment goes beyond the physical. One of the most influential components of your environment is the people you surround yourself with. From a neuroscience perspective, we are deeply social creatures. The brain is wired to mirror and adapt to the behavior, mood, and thinking of those around us. This is called social contagion. If you spend time with individuals who are unmotivated, negative, or financially reckless, you will subconsciously absorb and replicate those behaviors. On the other hand, if you place yourself in a peer group that values discipline, growth, and accountability, you will naturally elevate your own standards. It becomes easier to pursue excellence when that's the norm in your social environment. This is why high performers are incredibly selective about their relationships. They seek out mentors, coaches, and communities that challenge them to grow. They distance themselves from drama, distraction, and emotional chaos. It's not about judgment, it's about alignment. If someone is constantly pulling you away from your goals, even with good intentions, that influence adds up over time. In 6 months, it can be the difference between real progress and stagnation. By choosing your relationships consciously, you place yourself in an environment that supports your ambitions rather than undermines them. Digital environments also play a major role. The average person is bombarded with thousands of bits of information per day, much of it irrelevant, negative, or anxiety-inducing. Your social media feed, the news you consume, the podcasts you listen to, all of these shape your mental state and your beliefs about the world. High performers are intentional curators of their digital diet. They unfollow accounts that distract, depress, or agitate them. They choose to follow educators, thought leaders, and communities that align with their goals. They structure their devices so that their attention goes to creation, not consumption. This digital hygiene preserves mental energy and keeps focus sharp, allowing for more time spent building and less time reacting. One of the most powerful environment hacks is what psychologists call follower implementation intention. This means designing your space to prompt the behavior you want. For example, if you want to read more, leave your book out and your phone in another room. If you want to work out in the morning, lay out your gym clothes the night before. If you want to eat healthier, keep nutritious foods visible and accessible while removing junk food from the house. These small environmental cues eliminate the need for decision-making and make the desired behavior more automatic. Over time, this builds momentum and reshapes identity. You become someone who naturally does the right things without having to force it. Rituals and routines are another environmental tool. When your day has consistent anchors, such as a structured morning, focused work blocks, and a predictable wind down, you reduce the unpredictability of your behavior. The brain thrives on rhythm. These consistent patterns signal to the brain that it's time to focus, create, recover, or reflect. Rather than living in constant decision fatigue, you move through your day with fluidity. High performers build these rituals not out of rigidity, but out of respect for the power of habit. When the environment supports the habit, consistency becomes inevitable. Finally, your internal environment, your mindset, must also be managed like any other space. Negative self-talk, unresolved emotions, and lack of clarity are forms of internal clutter that block progress. Just as you would clean a messy desk, you need to clean up your mental space regularly. This means journaling to process thoughts, reflecting on goals, managing stress, and aligning with purpose. Wealthy and fulfilled individuals tend to have daily practices for maintaining their internal environment. They don't leave mindset to chance, they design it. Over 6 months, changing your environment can create exponential change without requiring superhuman effort. It's not about being perfect, it's about making your surroundings do the work for you. When you walk into a space that inspires clarity, when you spend time with people who energize you, when your phone becomes a tool for creation instead of a trap of distraction, your whole nervous system begins to shift. You feel safer, stronger, and more in control. That is when true transformation begins, not because you fought against your environment, but because you aligned it with who you are becoming.